There's been so much coverage about Apple's new Vision Pro, and I don't think I need to spend any time rehashing what you can already find online, but what I do want to talk about is how small businesses should be thinking about this next generation of computing. Why am I qualified to give an opinion? Well, for starters, we work with small businesses that use Apple products every single day. That's exactly what we do here at Fuji. But also, about 18 months ago, we purchased a Meta Quest VR headset for everyone here at Fuji because we had a feeling this was going to be the next era of computing. So we've been using these weekly for our conference calls, team meetings, to get a first-hand look at what VR is, and if it's just a gimmick or if it could really add some practical value to our daily work. So I want to break up this video into 3 different sections. First, some observations from a small business perspective on the Apple Vision Pro. Next, I want to ask some questions to Apple that weren't answered in their announcements, and then we'll touch on some predictions on how I see what was announced kind of rolling out for you and me. Apple's Vision Pro, and what this really is an entire platform with the Vision OS, is from the ground up a staggering difference from other VR headsets that we've seen. At least coming from the perspective of an Apple user. Using the Meta Quest, sure, it has like an app store type thing where most of the apps just kind of feel like gimmicks, and there are some interesting use cases. But when you see how much thought Apple has put into so many of the what ifs of just VR computing in general, you can see that they have thought about this VR AR experience as an entirely new product category. Keep in mind that the Reality Pro is not just an extension of your iPhone or an extension of your Mac. They are developing a brand new operating system, so it is a standalone product. It's going to have Apple Mail, FaceTime, its own apps. So we're not streaming information. Well, while you can stream your Mac screen to it, this is a new paradigm shift. And the level of detail that we saw in the announcements anyway, having used it myself, the level of detail goes far beyond what we've experienced using the Meta headset. Let's zoom out for just a second. I'm of the opinion that what was announced really is the next, say, 30, 40, 50 years of computing as we know it. I know that sounds so grandiose, but think about it. The Mac OS that you're probably watching this on was announced in 1984. It's about 40 years old, right? Sure, it's had a lot of iterations. It looks completely different and can do so much more than what it used to. But that's where I see this Vision OS. So you may or may not be using it next year whenever it's announced, early next year. But keep in mind that this won't be a flash in the pan, and Apple doesn't make investments this big unless they really think it's going to be worthwhile. One thing that I'm personally intrigued by is that the Vision Pro introduces a new way to interact with computers. A way that we've been seeing on movies for years, but no one has quite even done it, not even Meta. And what I mean is that the Mac in 1984 introduced the mouse to the masses. And then it wasn't until the iPhone that we all began to use only our hands, our fingers, to interact with our smartphones. Before that, every smartphone had a stylus. And then the AirPods really brought like voice activated features, to the masses, along with other companies. And there's no VR headset yet that is introducing what Apple has done with the Vision Pro. And that is that your eyes are the main way to interact with the entire environment. Apparently, just by looking around using the cameras built into the headset, the entire navigation experience is just controlled by what you look at. You can even look at a search field and start talking, and what the words you're saying autofill into that search field. Now you can use your hands for certain interactions like clicking, for example, just pinching your fingers like this. Apparently scrolling, you can kind of pinch a web page, scroll up, flick down. And from the reviews that I've seen, that's kind of the big paradigm shift compared to the other headsets. Sort of like that first time you picked up an iPhone and just flicked with your finger. That's just kind of a fun thing that I'm looking forward to using. So let's talk about what the Vision Pro means for small business. And really, what I think is important is not thinking about the Vision Pro so much, but this 3D or spatial computing as it relates to small business. Because what was announced is the culmination of all the big players getting into this type of computing, whether you call it virtual reality, augmented reality, or spatial computing, as Apple is calling it. This is a brand new platform, just like how in the 90s, the internet changed what it meant to be in business. And also in the 2000s, what smartphones did to change how we work day to day. What Apple announced isn't just a proprietary, gadget per se. They are establishing a brand new platform and developer tools so that you are going to see apps like Zoom and Microsoft and Slack and Dropbox being built on top of this platform. So while it's easy for all the media attention to be focused on this thing that we hold, but what really got kicked into high gear this week was this app ecosystem that's now going to be developed for spatial computing. So what does that mean for us here in small business? So how fast will we see this impact? Honestly, I think it's going to be kind of slow. Think about how many years after 2007 it took you to get an iPhone. And after that, how many years did it take for you to do more and more of your computing on the iPhone? So we're not actually waiting on Apple here, right? Because that's going to be here next year. What you and I are going to be waiting on are the app developers. So for our medical practices, it's those EMRs that are going to add spatial computing features, or the law firms using case management tools like Clio. When will there be a spatial computing feature in Clio that will enhance the work inside of a law firm? I don't know. And same thing for construction companies. So how it'll impact each of us and the workspace, I think, will largely be dependent on the apps that you are currently using for work. Now, there is still some reason to get excited if you are ready to get your hands on one of these, because Apple did share that all of the apps in the App Store are going to work on the Vision Pro on day one. They just may not have specific Vision Pro, features, but apparently a lot of the apps will still just run like they do on your iPad currently. So for those general apps, you'll certainly be able to use them. And at that point, you're probably taking advantage of the Vision Pro for features like having a really large display. You can just blow up your your viewing area to take up the whole wall, or to have multiple displays. Maybe each of your apps can be the size of a big 30-inch monitor that you're used to having. And to feel productive from a hotel room, right? Having that full computing space around you. So we will have to see where those edges are of how capable this is. But the apps you use will be compatible. Now, an example of something that'll work, but I don't know how it's going to be in reality, is Zoom calls, for example. So you will be able to do Zoom calls. Let's say you're working remotely or at a hotel and traveling. You just want to take your headset with you. You will be able to see everyone else, but everyone else will see what does Apple call it? A persona of you. They don't want to use the word avatar, but it's basically like a high definition avatar that isn't completely natural. So I'm sure in the small business space where we're pretty casual, we might see more of that. It might be more easily accepted, but it's just hard to predict. You know, we also didn't know what things would look like before the pandemic that are now normal. It is a super exciting dawn of computing to be watching right now, alongside other, you know, advancements like artificial intelligence with ChatGPT. So as small businesses, we're going to be looking for ways that this can enhance our specific needs. I don't think we'll be buying them for all of our team right away. But we're just gonna keep our eye out to see what are these killer features that you've gotta do with this headset. Now, there's plenty of cool things in the entertainment and consumption space outside of your work. But as far as work goes, you know, you probably don't wanna run out and buy this just to do your emails and spreadsheets on this. Okay, so a couple questions for Apple here as it relates to businesses. First, will businesses be able to manage the Vision Pro through current MDM functions to maintain your company's security policies? We don't know yet, but Apple does have the platform to do it. So hopefully we can have these auto configure out of the box for your team, but no news on that currently. The next feature that I think businesses really need to have in order to make this productive is the file access. So my question for Apple is, will the Files app be available, or how quickly will Dropbox and OneDrive and Google Drive have their file sharing apps or components built into this operating system? Because without that, it's gonna be hard to get some work done. So let me share 3 predictions that I have about this. Come next year, you are gonna see people walking down the street with this. Will it look a little silly? Yes, it will. But you know what? We also thought AirPods looked silly when they first came out, yet people are now wearing them like at work, right? And we also didn't think that everyone would be wearing masks every day when we go outside, even, you know, well after the pandemic. So I think it will be one of those weird things that society will just kind of get used to. My next prediction is that businesses in certain industries will buy these in pallets. There are gonna be some killer apps, for example, in construction, or maybe in training, education, like simulation type jobs, where these are going to be dramatically safer to train with, or maybe dramatically less expensive to train with. The other group of people that are gonna buy these next year are people like maybe you and me, who just want to be able to use this and see what it's all about. But this is not going to be adopted across the masses for several years. I'm gonna say maybe 10 years before you can expect family members to just have one and be using it for work or for their day-to-day. So this is a slow-moving ship that just got started this summer. And why do I think this adoption will happen so quickly in the business space? It's because there is no chicken and egg problem here. The businesses that know they need it, there is already gonna be an app store on day one. Okay, that's been part of the problem with Meta's headset, for example, is a bit of a chicken and egg problem. But listen, Apple's App Store is already very widely used and very, it's already approved by so many businesses in work culture that for the companies who want to get these, it's gonna happen quickly. So on day one, businesses can download Zoom, download Microsoft, and start working. Hey, what predictions do you have, or even questions? You know, we'll probably be getting on calls with Apple as we get closer to these release dates. So let us know, and I wanna gather these up for you. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.